My friends, I'd like to discuss a very important topic today, guitar picks. Because chances are you're currently using the wrong guitar picks for the wrong guitar parts. It turns out there's a huge difference not only in feel when you compare different guitar picks, but also with the sound you can get out of them. So if you're currently not satisfied with your guitar tone or your guitar playing, the pick could actually be the culprit. Let's start with topic number one, and this one is all about arpeggiated playing. So a very common thing you absolutely have to be able to do as a guitar player is arpeggiating chords by picking different notes. So instead of just playing the full chord like this, all notes at the same time, you want to be able to play interesting picking patterns to really accentuate the individual notes. You will need that in tons of songs, and if you ever decide to become a professional guitar player, producers will ask you to do this all the time. And I had to learn this the hard way if you're playing with a clean sound and you use a pick that has very sharp edges. You can really hear the pick scraping against those strings and it just doesn't sound nice, although you're doing nothing wrong with your picking technique. So whenever you want to record some beautiful sounding clean guitars and you don't necessarily always want to switch to the neck pickup, which sounds much less bright, so it's a shame to always just rely on this one to get a soft sound, you can instead use picks with a very soft edge. So this is the one I used for the bad demonstration. It has a really hard, sharp edge, and this is the one I will use now. It has a very round and soft edge, and I know they're both black, maybe you can't see it in detail, but I'm simply looking for a round edge or tip when I'm recording soft clean parts instead of using very sharp and pointy picks like this one. This is the other pick, for example, so it sounds much softer in comparison, right? When I record parts like this, it's the only time that I also use a parallel angle, so I'm not angling my pick like this. You always get a bit more of that scratching noise if you angle the pick. So I make sure to use it like this, so that the round edge is softly bouncing. Very soft sound. Let's try the other sharp one. So this is how it sounds like when most metal guitar players play their clean parts. Kind of a shame. Now to try that out yourself and to practice getting those soft and really mellow sounding results, I prepared a really cool picking etude for you where you have to alternate pick between different chord shapes. Sounds really nice. Pay close attention to the sound of the pick. So this exercise is great for practicing alternate picking across multiple strings, because you always have to switch between the strings for every single picking stroke. It's much harder than it looks. And if you want a super nice, well-balanced and soft sound without that nasty picking attack for your clean part, I recommend using a pick with a round and soft edge for parts like this. Alright, for the next exercise and the next topic, I'd like to talk about the complete opposite, metal rhythm guitar. I'm still gonna use a clean sound for this so that you can hear the differences between the picks. But the pick that I mainly play is a Jazz 3 size pick, either with a grip surface or my signature Jazz 3 picks that have this nice graphic prints with a non-slippery surface. I'll show you the exact difference between these two a bit later. But when I was recording really heavy downpicking parts with those smaller picks, I sometimes felt like they lacked a little bit of punch. Of course, you can always dig in a little bit harder, but to get some heavier results, I've been using bigger picks recently for those classic metal riffs and metal parts. So this pick is closer to the standard pick size, I guess. You can see it with the Jazz 3 pick right next to it. It's a little bit bigger, and it also has a really sharp edge. So not a round edge, it's pretty sharp, the tip as well, which means you get a bit of that scraping sound. But having a thicker pick like this and a bigger one with sharp edges gets me much more picking attack right away, although I'm not picking with more power and I'm not using my arm, I'm still using my wrist. I just get a bit more output because the pick is bigger, I'm naturally digging into the strings a little bit more and the edge is quite sharp for that pick scraping noise. The best way of practicing this and analyzing your picking sound is by just working with super cool downstroke patterns with the lowest string on your guitar. Here's an exercise that you can use to give this a try. So this one is not just a great rhythm exercise and super satisfying to play if you're into metal guitar. It's a great way of giving bigger, thicker picks a try with sharp edges to see if they spice up your metal riffs as well. And by the way, all of the exercises I'm showing to you in this video are part of the brand new practice package that I made exclusively for my Guitar Academy on Patreon. With this new really awesome picking practice package, you get slow and fast challenging play along videos for all of these exercises, the tabs, guitar profiles and backing tracks with and without my guitar so that you can practice together with me in your routine. And of course, all members on Patreon also have access to over 12 high quality guitar technique courses, 5 full music theory courses and 4 home recording courses that show you how to get a great sounding guitar tone at home without breaking the bank. And in case you feel a bit stuck and you want my personal help and input, there's even a personal coaching tier. With this one you get access to the secret Facebook group, you can upload your practice footage and I will personally help you out on your guitar journey. We just opened a handful of new slots for this month because the demand is so incredibly high at the moment. We can just accept a limited amount of students every single month. So click the link down below, patreon.com/bernd, to see if there's still a slot available for you. Join my online Guitar Academy right now, get access to all these amazing courses right away. I'm waiting for you inside, but now let's move on to the next exercise. Alright, so what I'd like to talk to you about next is strumming. This is an extremely neglected topic, although this is all you're doing when you're playing most songs, most pop songs especially. And I personally think in 2 ways of strumming. The first one is basically hitting all the strings at the same time and playing a certain pattern. Something simple like this, or something that I'm personally known for, my modular picking technique. That one is essentially a mix of sweep picking, economy picking and strumming. So I'm not just moving up and down with my pick like this, producing random noises. I actually want to play on the grid 32nd notes, 16th notes, 16th note triplets. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It takes a bit of practice, but you can really speed this up and get some crazy patterns for both your chords and your solos. But once again, I often found the sound of the usual picks that I'm using to be quite aggressive, especially for clean parts. So what I've been experimenting with, especially for those strumming techniques, is working with extremely thin picks like this one. As you can see, this one is bending quite heavily. It's one of those infamous shark fin picks. And yeah, as you can see, it's super thin. So when I'm attacking the strings with this one, it's bending a lot before the note is generated. So you can almost feel some kind of delay when you're picking. But the sound is really interesting because it's not a super hard or thick pick like some of the ones that I like to work with and that I showed you so far. It's really soft, so all the picking strokes are kind of blending together since there's not a heavy accent on every single string. It's kind of melting together and it also feels quite satisfying to glide over the strings with such a thin pick. Let's compare that to the usual Jazz 3 size pick that I'm using. Yeah, a lot of output and that can be great, of course, but if I want a really transparent, clean tone, I usually go for a thinner pick like this one. And what also sounds really interesting is that kind of arpeggiated sound where I'm sweep picking, or modular picking in my case. That sounds super satisfying and it feels great as well, because there's a little bit of a delayed response with that pick and you really feel every single picking stroke because it's bending a little bit and then you have that satisfying pop once the note rings out. So in case you never tried super thin picks like this shark fin pick, for example, just pick one of them up at your next visit at any guitar store and give the following exercise a try, because this one is a great combination of the traditional strumming approach and my modular picking approach in between. Up next, I'd like to talk about a very popular technique that we have to mention when we're talking about picking, and it's sweep picking, of course. You're probably familiar with this technique, so instead of attacking every single string individually, you're sweeping across the strings, just like with my modular picking technique or with economy picking, for example, where you have that small sweep picking motion in there. And in the personal coaching Facebook group where I'm coaching my patrons, I see a lot of players that use big picks for sweep picking. That also works, of course, if you master the mechanics of the technique, but I see that a lot of students get stuck between the strings because they're digging in too much with a big pick like this, and they also get some string noise because they're accidentally touching strings that they're not supposed to play on. So for sweep picking, I still think there isn't really a better choice than the classic Jazz 3 pick size, because with those smaller picks you have a lot of control about how much of the pick you're actually using, because when you're just holding it, gripping it normally, there's not a lot of the pick sticking out, as opposed to gripping a bigger pick like this. If I don't think about it and I just grip it and hold it, there's a lot of the pick sticking out, which is kind of bad for sweep picking. So with those smaller picks, you naturally have a better chance of not getting stuck in between the strings and developing that kind of fluid sweep picking motion. So if you feel like you still have some work to do when it comes to developing a fluid sweeping movement, I got a really cool and practical exercise for you this week that's about switching between different shapes that you might not be using that often, mostly major shapes. If you're not really using Jazz 3 picks at the moment, I want you to try using those for this upcoming exercise. Also, just practice this exercise because it's a really, really good one. Check it out. And for today's last and very important topic, I want to talk about the technique I get asked about all the time, possibly the most important one, alternate picking. And for those classic, really awesome sounding 3-note per string runs and everything else shred related, I've been using my signature picks mostly at the time. The reason for that is that they have a bit of a sharper edge compared to those classic Jazz 3 picks. So with distortion, but actually also with a clean tone, as you will be able to hear in a couple of seconds, you get a really, really satisfying tone, and the note separation is pretty cool. And as a bonus, they also look really nice. This is the Waterworks guitar pick, and compared to most picks that have a graphic print, they're not that slippery, so it's a nice grip surface still. They come in this really cool pick box because I'm losing my picks all the time and I finally wanted a box for myself, so I thought this is something you would like as well. And you have 5 of those picks in there. All of them look different. This is the shred one, for example. Everyone needs one of these, I think. You can find the link to those in the description. I would be honored if you want to give them a try. And one last very important thing for you. My signature picks were actually made by the awesome people at the Picks House. So I could choose the material of the pick, the shape of the pick, and of course the awesome graphic print as well. And naturally I thought this would be quite interesting for a lot of you as well, to finally have a pick that has your name on it, your logo, your band name, or whatever you want on there. So I also asked them for a discount code for all watchers of this channel and for all of my Patreon members. So if you want a really cool pick with your band name, your logo, your name, or the face of a cat or something, whatever you want, just go to this website, use my promo code that you can see on screen right now. Once again, those are the people that made my signature guitar picks and I'm pretty happy with them. Everyone who ordered them so far is also quite happy. So if you want your own signature picks or your own custom picks, just go to this website, use my code, get a discount, and enjoy your brand new guitar picks. Alright, and as promised with alternate picking, especially with a clean tone like this, you can clearly hear that the sound is pretty interesting. It's not extremely scrapey compared to bigger, thicker and sharper picks, but you can clearly hear every single note, and there's a really cool note separation with this pick, and I personally just really like how they feel and how they sound, especially with those fast alternate picking licks. So to test a really, really cool and practical, quite challenging alternate picking run with a Jazz 3 size pick, I prepared one last very challenging exercise with tricky string transitions in there. This is an awesome daily alternate picking workout, and I also recommend giving it a try with a clean sound and closely listening to the sound that your pick makes. To see if you're currently happy with that, try out this exercise. Alright my friend, those are all of today's exercises and all of today's guitar picks. I really hope that I could help you out with this. Don't forget to download the new picking practice package on patreon.com/burnt. That's my online guitar academy. Pick up my signature picks in case you also want to give them a try after this video. I would love to hear what you think about them. And if you want your own custom signature picks, you can go to the Picks House and use my promo code that you can see on screen for a discount for your maybe very first signature or custom guitar pick. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next time. Greetings from Vienna and bye bye.